Welcome, everyone, into the crowded booth. Happy Friday to you. The Atlanta Braves are dominating on the road. But why? But how? And they've also got a 6-game lead in the National League East heading into a big series against the Baltimore Orioles. Yes, the Baltimore Orioles are coming to town. It's a big series. We're going to recap the road trip and why the 15-3 record on the road is no fluke. That and more on today's episode of the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon and Ralph Leary. Ralph received a little bit of hate on the last podcast from in the comments section, but that's okay. He's a troll, and he knows it. He accepts who he is with the Georgia Tech community. Hey, my name is Bryce Koon. This is Ralph Leary. If you're listening in on podcasts, make sure to hit that subscribe button, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, or anywhere that you listen on your drive from work, your drive to the gym. Maybe you're at the gym. Maybe you are, maybe you use our just rambling, sometimes incoherently, as motivation to get your run done in the gym. I don't know. Maybe you do. Well, there you go. Also, though, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're 10 away from 1,700 subscribers. Let's talk Atlanta Braves. Ralph, the Braves get back from a road series tonight. They're going to start a pivotal series where the Orioles are just one game behind, I believe. I think Baltimore's 21-10 in the AL East. So it's going to be a fun series in Atlanta. I wanted to go, unfortunately not going to be able to, but this is not the Orioles team of previous years. We're not here to talk about them, though. We're here to recap the road trip. It's a big weekend in Atlanta, but more importantly, last weekend, Ralph, we left Atlanta, if you're a Braves fan, feeling kind of with a sour taste in your mouth. A 3-hour rain delay. Paused the game against the Marlins. Then you had to turn around and you were like, oh, here come the Mets. And, a lot of people across podcast networks, across media networks, like, this is a big series. It's a rematch of the battle that happened last year. And I want to start with this right now. The Mets are a shell of themselves from last year. I don't think this team's better than last year. I don't think, and I'm not going to get clipped here and say the division is over, because it's definitely not, like a fun radio host up in New York did last season. But what I will say is the Braves continue to dominate on the road, Ralph. Amidst everything, they ended up taking, was supposed to be a 4-game series, and I believe they played 3 games in like a day and a half or 2 days or something like that over the course.
They played a 5-inning game and 2 9-inning games on Monday.
Yeah, so. just bizarre. They win the series 2 out of 3 from New York. Ralph, just some thoughts from the Mets series where Atlanta. Look, the offense is really, really good, and we're going to talk about how they just continue to just bat their eyes at the injuries that happen. It's a deep roster, and I think they just put on display and said, "Hey, kind of send a message to the Mets early on and say, hey, we're not playing around this year. We're the real deal, and you're going to have to come catch us."
Well, my thing right now is you talk about this roster and how deep this lineup really is, but it's been the pitching to me of this so far, and especially the starting rotation. Max Fried only pitched 5 innings on Friday, but they only played 5 innings. But he was lights out. 7 strikeouts in 5 innings.
He's got a .45 ERA, Ralph.
Exactly. And he hasn't pitched since that game. So he'll probably be going first game 1 tonight.
He's going tonight.
He's going tonight. I haven't looked at the matchups yet. So Max Fried on the mound tonight, you couldn't be more confident about that. But, you said it best. This roster is deep. This lineup is deep. They're good. Like it's not like a lineup where you have holes everywhere. This lineup has a solid, 1 through 5 is probably one of the best 1 through 5s in baseball. I mean, you have the lead on. To me, the out front right, MVP right now in Acuna.
Oh, no doubt.
National
Player of the month in the April.
Right. And then you got Madison, who's doing his thing. He's getting on. I think he's more patient at the plate this year. Austin Riley's starting a little slow. He's getting back up there. And then you got Ozzy Albies, who was out most of the year last year, who is just turning around. He's hitting the ball extremely well right now. Started off slow also, but he's found his swing. And then there's Sean Murphy.
Sean Murphy's put up NFL MVP numbers.
Sean Murphy, who everyone at the start of the season said he was a bust because he was having a rough start. I mean, no one starts off the season hitting 1,000 for 8 games.
Especially on a new team.
Exactly, in a new division too. You're not playing AL West anymore. Playing AL East, so they beat up on each other constantly. AL West is ran by the Astros, and you may have a little run it by the Mariners, but that's it.
Yeah.
Like the Angels are a shell of themselves. Also, they just
Hey, the
fork
Rangers
out
are
money.
good this year. Rangers are good.
Yeah, this year though, not last
this year. Yeah.
So Sean Murphy wasn't used to playing this NL East schedule, so he's got into it and he's killing the ball. So he had a great road series. I felt like, especially the home run he had against the Mets on was it the Friday night game? He had a home run, I think.
Friday night it was Matt Olson that had the home run.
That's right. It was only 3. Yeah, he had a 3 home run. But Sean Murphy's hit the ball extremely well right now. I mean, I'm gonna say because he had a really great series in Miami. It's Marcell Ozuna. He finally showed up.
Dude. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. I want to go real quick and go back to Friday night. Acuna singles, brings home a run, 1-0 against David Peterson. You're like, okay, that's a big run. Then Matt Olson comes up next and hits a 3-run homer, and that was the game. But kind of just moving along with what you're talking about, Sean Murphy continues to show why I think the Braves won this trade. I don't know what the A's were thinking. Like it was a 3-team trade, and the A's didn't get anybody, in my opinion. Milwaukee got Wild Bill and William Contreras, and that is a big pickup. I don't think Contreras sticks at catcher. He's going to have to develop. He's still a young kid. He's still young. But he's obviously got a good bat. But, man, first off, and we talked about this earlier in the season already, what Sean Murphy brings to the table in the sense of defensively, that's good enough. Now what he's doing with the bat, I think he's up around a 280-something average now after starting and sitting around 220, 225 through the first kind of month of the season. He's turned it up. And, Ralph, this is also something where it's not just been like a span of a couple games. Obviously, he's playing really well right now. It's been like the last 2 or 3 weeks where he is just absolutely crushing the baseball. You and I were joking the other day. When he swings, he doesn't get cheated. This guy swings so hard. But that's a big sign. And then what you're talking about, Marcell Ozuna. And this is what I want to say about the Ozuna situation. I've been to 3 games so far in Atlanta. I've heard the boos every single time when he comes up and he strikes out. And personal stuff aside, obviously some of the boos are for the personal life decisions that he has made. And then it doesn't help that he was batting literally 075, 068, for the first 4 weeks of the season. But he has a fantastic breakout, series in Miami. And Ralph, he did it against Sandy Alcantara.
Right.
Sandy Alcantara is the last year's Cy Young Award winner. So this is a guy that is a really, really good pitcher. He does it. And look, Marcell Ozuna didn't forget how to hit, although it looked at like it sometimes, it felt like he did. But this is a guy who can hit the baseball. Anything. This is why they kept running him out there. I'll say this, Ralph, and then I'll hand it over to you. I understand why people say, hey, I don't want him on the roster. For moral reasons, whatever you want to do. My stance is it's just not, as a fan of the team, it's not my place to pass judgment on someone when I don't even know the full scope of the situation. Now, a lot of it has been made public, but you mentioned in the postgame, after he had the 2-home-run game, including the Grand Slam, he thanked his family. So if his family's fine, why do I care? You know what I'm saying? Why does it matter to me? Why? And that is such an issue that we have, and I'm not going to get on the soapbox here, but it's such an issue we have, especially in sports. Yes, we hold our athletes to a higher standard. Yes, we hold these people to a higher standard, and we're going to make the joke Ozuna from the Braves and all this stuff. But why does it matter so much to fan 467 just because you're a season ticket holder? That's fantastic. Why does it matter so much? Player doesn't need to be a role model. You need to be a role model for your kids. That's a family and parenting podcast that we'll have on a different segment. But you mentioned, Ralph, the post-game press conference or post-game interview when he thanked his family, I think this has weighed a lot on him, and I think the weight literally came off his shoulders in Miami, and I don't expect him to be an MVP, but he can be he right now in his career, no one expects him to be this, but he can be an accessory piece to this lineup. He doesn't have to be the focal point, and I think that's the role that he can be in.
Well, he's solid against lefties. When he hits the ball, though, if you're watching a game and you're just looking at stats only, you're not watching the game, you don't understand what I'm going to say here, is when he actually hits the ball, it may be a fly out, it may be a ground out, but he's hitting the ball 100 miles an hour almost every time. He hits it hard.
He hits hard.
He does hit it right to a fielder. Okay, it's baseball. Baseball's a hard game to play. It's not easy. No one's out there hitting 500 anymore. It's not 14, or they put a stick in a rock. I mean, this is real life now. I'm looking at his stats this year. He had 5 hits from the whole month of April. 5 hits only. 2 of them were home runs. In the series against the Marlins, he went 6 for 13 with 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, and 2 walks. Struck out twice. I mean, I know that's just one series. I really do. I know that's one series, and you're taking bases off the Marlins. The Marlins may have one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. I mean, it gets overlooked because their lineup is horrible. I mean, you got Jazz Chisholm in center field, who still hasn't really learned how to play center field. He's just kind of out there. He's fast. He can get the ball, but he's kind of making some bad angles and stuff. But
just like his MLB The Show card. Yes.
But he hasn't learned out there yet. This is his first time playing center field. But the Marlins are not a bad team. They're
16-16. Yeah.
I mean, they probably could push for third place in the East this year. They could push for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not going to probably finish in third place, but they could probably push for it. The Phillies are getting Bryce Harper back. The Mets are, like I said, a shell of themselves. But with Ozuna having a great series, you hope that he bounces back with this weekend against the Baltimore Orioles, who are a solid team, very young, talented team. And you really hope to see that this is a turnaround for him. So I know the boos happen. I mean, like actually, I've watched the game. I hear it on TV. I've booed it myself. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't support it. I mean, it's been a rough time for him in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's been a rough year and a half for sure.
Really. And and you can say, well, that's his own fault. Well, yeah, but everyone has problems. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has this week. Like you said a minute ago about holding athletes higher, but a simple mistake could ruin a guy's career, and it's true. So to keep hassling him about it and harassing him about it on the field is not helping him get better.
And let's say this too: he's not a cancer in the locker room. Like the guys like him, and that's something
watch the game and watch the replay after the game when they're all celebrating. I mean, they love him. He's always.
I guarantee you, the guys in that locker room, well, first off, I guarantee you, Ozuna spoke to the locker room, and fans he needs to say, that's not your job. You're not a player. Like I guarantee you, Ozuna said something in the locker room about the actions that happened and apologized because that's just how the Braves are run. Mm-hmm. That's what they expect. But then I guarantee you, nobody was happier than his teammates in the locker room to see, because no one likes to see a teammate go out there at this point and get booed by his home crowd over and over again. I wanted to read this. I love their podcast. The 755 is Real podcast. David O'Brien, Eric O'Flaherty on The Athletic. David O'Brien, a longtime Braves beat writer for the AJC, and then now with The Athletic. This is crazy, Ralph. So this is what he tweeted out, and this was yesterday afternoon. Braves Marcell Ozuna, despite a terrible first month, and you mentioned it, an awful first month of the season, he has more homers in 70 at-bats than Manny Machado has in 119 at-bats, Carlos Correa has it in 107, and Christian Yelich in 114. So he has more home runs. And then here, wait for this. Through the 6th inning last night, this tweet was during the middle of the game yesterday afternoon in Miami, Ozuna had a 649 OPS. Machado, 659. Correa, 666. Yelich, 703. All that to say, Ralph, Ozuna really, in the scope of the Braves lineup, he's been bad. But Machado, Correa, and Yelich are 3 of the highest paid players in baseball, and Ozuna's kind of right there with them. And here's another thing. Machado, Padres don't have the depth the Braves do, so Machado is a key piece. Correa is almost the face of the Twins. I mean, when you talk about offensively. Yelich, he's had a couple down years, but Yelich has to be great for the Brewers to be good. Marcell Ozuna doesn't have to be great for the Braves to be good, and I think that's where fans get caught up into it. It's not MLB The Show. This is not a video game. And so if Ozuna can just settle in, and Ralph, if he bats 250 this year, seriously, if he bats 250 solid. And hits 20 bombs, who cares? It's not your money that you're spending the $32 million guaranteed over the next 2 years on him for. And he's just an auxiliary piece. He's not a I would say, Ralph, he is probably like the 7th or 8th option in this lineup when you need a big hit.
Yeah, and you said right there, if he hits 250, you're gonna have has 20 home runs. You got Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna, Austin Riley, and Sean Murphy, who could probably hit 30 or more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Austin, Ronald Acuña is going to go for a 40-40. I 100% believe it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's at 15 stolen bases right now. His home runs are a little low, but he, he's the premier to me right now, the best leadoff man in baseball.
Oh, he's the prototypical modern day leadoff guy.
Yeah, he's getting on base. He does what he needs to. He moves over when he knows he can. Like, he's not taking now he's been caught stealing a few times. Yeah. But no one's going to have a 100% stealing stolen base record or a percentage, because that'd be impossible. But with this lineup and how they're doing right now, and with the series coming up, they're hot. Their pitching's great. The lineup's hitting the ball extremely well. I don't need Ozuna to go hit 300. I don't need him to have his 2020 season. The 2020 season, we needed him because we had
Austin Riley hadn't broken out yet.
Austin Riley hadn't broken out yet.
You didn't,
our pitching staff, our starting rotation was abysmal. We had Max Fried. That was it. It was true.
Yeah.
You tell me, if you go back and look at that 2020 season, how many of the guys are still pitching today on this roster? 2. Kyle Wright pitched a few times. It was terrible.
And Max Fried.
Max Fried was 7-0, had the best ERA, should have won Cy Young if it wasn't for Trevor Bauer and his sticky stuff. But Marcell Ozuna had to be that guy that year. He had to be the guy to get on base. He had to be the guy to get RBIs and score. That's what we needed him that year. But Marcell Ozuna didn't have to be. We needed him in 2020 because we didn't really have much to go off, and we didn't expect that World Series run or that NLCS run that year. No one expected that out of us.
Yeah.
So for him to be who he is this year, to add into this, it's another weapon in this lineup that you gotta be prepared for. You can't say, "Oh, Arizona's up, easy out." Now you're looking at him like, okay, if he comes up and he hits 20 home runs and 250, now you gotta worry about him, because then Travis d'Arnaud is coming back soon. You got another piece to this lineup, and this lineup is filthy.
Gross. It's gross. It's gross. Yeah, and I think, too, when you talk about, when Michael Harris has had this injury bug bite him earlier in the year, he's going to come back and be a great player. Acuña. Eddie Rosario is playing a lot better. He's been rewarded, obviously, on some of these hits. His batting average has kind of skyrocketed, I should say, in the sense of he was batting around 170. Now he's batting like 230, 220. So he's starting to find the stride. Sam Hilliard. I don't think we could say enough about what he did during the absence of Michael Harris. Sam Hilliard, look, he's not going to be an MVP player, but he is a replacement-level guy. He's a guy you can throw in there. Great speed, great defender. So, through the Mets and Marlins series, Ralph, I think we learned that, this team's really, really deep. And I will say this. I firmly believe that the Braves are deeper than the Dodgers at this point, because the Dodgers really didn't do a lot in free agency the past year. Now, look, they brought up James Outman, who is really, really good. They brought up players. They didn't really do a ton in free agency this past offseason, in adding high-level players. Now, look, they do a lot of homegrown talent over there in L.A., but it feels like the Braves are like the deepest team in baseball, because when you look at some of the top teams, and let's just take a look. Who they just played? The Mets. Okay, yeah, the Mets are a shell of themselves. Like, I don't know if Max Scherzer is ever going to get back to the Nationals form of Max Scherzer. I don't think he will. I think he's still going to be really good, but I don't think he's going to be that.
He's still suspended also.
So Justin Verlander, like, you're relying on two guys on their almost 40 years old to be the workhorses, and the Braves have a guy who's 29, who's probably one of the best pitchers in baseball, and making a case right now to be the pitcher of the month. I don't know if he was, probably not because of injury, and he didn't get enough starts. But 0.45 ERA is going to face Dean Kremer tonight in Atlanta against Baltimore. Kind of the final topic of conversation here we're going to talk about with the Braves is the shortstop position, Ralph. Vaughn Grissom has struggled defensively in the sense, but it's another situation where I saw this, and this podcast is going to be posted in the Braves Facebook groups, okay? Let's just get it out of the way. It's going to happen. But what I want folks to know is, I saw someone post this morning on Facebook. They said, I shouldn't have been on there. They put a picture of Adeiny Hechavarria, who's in Gwinnett, or I think he's in Gwinnett. He's somewhere.
He's in Gwinnett.
He's in Gwinnett. They said, what happened to this guy? Like, why is he not playing? How do you expect Vaughn Grissom to work through the issues that he has if he doesn't play? Like, it is this sense of entitlement from Braves fans that everyone should just be a 99 overall on the roster. And Vaughn Grissom's going to have to learn. Last season, he came up and he had a tear. Then he was really poor and hitting. And look, this kid's going to hit. He's got to learn defensively until Orlando Arcia can come back. But, man, I don't understand why folks can't say, you know what, if batting in the 9-hole is Vaughn Grissom and he plays, average defense this season, who cares? Like, why do we care so much? That's what gets me. And he's going to be a good player. I think he is. And they're saying, immediately move him to left field. Why? Like, why would you move a guy who's trying to learn shortstop to a position he's never played?
Well, this is my thing, and this goes off of like what happened last year with him. Last year, he played 40 games. 39 he started. All at second base. Not his natural position. He was also, 20 years old, coming from Double-A. Now, he didn't play Triple-A last year. He didn't get to play a single Triple-A game last year. He played straight from Double-A to Major Leagues.
And he didn't play that many games in Double-A. Yeah, he played
exactly.
15, 20 games, I think, in Double-A.
Yeah, so he got basically thrown into a blender. That's how I'd say it. And he performed at the best level we know he could do. Because that's all we could see out of him. I'm not expecting him to hit 300. I'm not expecting him to have a perfect fielding percentage. He's not used to me. Some of the plays he's made, he got, air mails a few throws, and I think he's a little, excited. Not like he's like, oh, God, I can throw the ball. No, he's like, he wants to make the play. He wants to make sure he makes the play right, and he'll just overthink it, I think. And that hurts him in the long run. But he's going to learn. To me, the Braves had the best infield coach in baseball with Ron Washington. You see the difference between what happened when Dansby was here, when how Ozzy was here, and Freddie. Yeah. Austin Riley is turned into almost a Gold Glove third baseman. Now he'll never win a Gold Glove since Arenado plays third base in baseball. He'll never win a Gold Glove until Arenado retires, which we don't know when that'll happen ever. But even Matt Olson's gotten better at first base. Now he has a few misplays, but he's also 6'5" and doesn't move very fast. So what do you expect?
Yeah.
So. To harp on Vaughn Grissom it's sad. The dude is young. He's extremely young. No one pops out of baseball like Acuna did. Okay, sorry, Acuna's he's a
unicorn.
Unicorn, exactly. Vaughn Grissom's not Acuna. He's not going to hit like him. He's just going to do what he can.
Well, and Braves fans are spoiled too because we've seen Acuna. We've seen, let's go back to 2018. You saw Acuna. You saw Soroka, who was really good his first year. You saw Max Fried, who struggled a little bit, then came on. But you saw Michael Harris last season, that came on and won the Rookie of the Year. So it's just one of those things where I think this team's trending in the right direction. They've got a really good club. They're really deep. They're going to be okay. And we're talking about a team, people complaining, they're 22-10. They're 6 games up in the division. And while it's just the first week of May the 5th, happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody. While it's just May 5th, Ralph, you're playing 2 less series, one at home, one on the road, against your divisional opponents. So it does make a matter of where teams can't just play you head-to-head and beat you. Braves did benefit from that last year, being down 10 games, being able to do that, but not this season with the schedule changes. But, hey, Atlanta playing Baltimore tonight. Dean Creamer, who you and I beat up on the MLB The Show and play CPU games, he's pitching, but he's got a pretty good record. And Baltimore is a fun team, Ralph. I really wish I could have made the game out to a game. I'd love to see Adley Rutschman play in person. This is a really fun Baltimore team that is trying to compete in the AL East. Atlanta with a 3-game series. And then I believe, Ralph, I don't know if you got the schedule in front of you.
I do.
But I believe it's just a 3-game series and then back on the road.
So it's Baltimore at 7:20, 7:15, and 11:35 in the morning on Sunday.
That's that Peacock broadcast.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that with no broadcasters. And then they go to Boston, Toronto, and they go wait. Boston comes to Atlanta for 2. We go to Toronto, Texas, and then come back for Seattle. And so
it's a fun schedule.
It's about to be gritty because you go Boston, Toronto, Texas, Seattle, Dodgers, Philly, and then you go out to Oakland and have some fun.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Crazy. Hey, but this is the Crowded Booth Podcast talking to the Atlanta Braves here on a fine Cinco de Mayo big game tonight. Make sure to check it out. Make sure to check us out and what they have going on in the rest of the channel. But it's the Braves and Orioles tonight. Braves coming off a big weekend or a big week on the road, 15-3 on the road so far this season. I believe they're 7-7 at home, trying to go above 500 this weekend. But hey, they're good. It's a fun time to be a Braves fan. I'll tell you this. My dad used to say it in the 80s, and Ralph and I can say it for the early 2010s. Relish these moments. You have to. You have to, because the Braves have had some lean years, and you want to relish these moments. Hey, we'll talk to you next time here on the Crowded Booth Podcast. He's Ralph Leary. I'm Bryce Koon. Thanks so long. We'll see you next time. This has been another episode talking Atlanta Braves on the Crowded Booth Podcast.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.